Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang, almost 10 hours late, and I am here with Morsels of a Thought, number 1804. Today, we are looking at Words and Wisdom Wednesday, and I am reading from The Book of Virtues, compiled by William J. Bennett. He wrote a lot of commentary on different pieces of literature that he compiled into different virtuous categories. And the one we're reading today is out of work. Elias is by Leo Tolstoy. The commentary from William J. Bennett is: for half a century we sought happiness, Elias's wife says in this story, and as long as we were rich, we never found it. Now that we have nothing left and have taken service as laborers, we have found such happiness that we want nothing better. This simple yet profound story is a good one for anybody choosing a career, job, or task. There's certainly nothing wrong with working to get money, but there may be something very wrong if you think the getting gets you happiness. So, Leo Tolstoy. There once lived in the government of Ufa a Bashkir named Elias. His father, who died a year after he had found his son a wife, did not leave him much property. Elias then only had seven Elias then had only 7 mares, 2 cows, and about a score of sheep. He was a good manager, however, and soon began to acquire more. Soon began to acquire more. He and his wife worked from morn till night, rising earlier than others and going later to bed, and his possessions increased year by year. Living in this way, Elias little by little acquired great wealth. At the end of 35 years, he had 200 horses, 150 head of cattle, and 1,200 sheep. Hired laborers tended his flocks and herds, and hired women milked his mares and cows and made kumis, butter, and cheese. Elias had abundance of everything, and everyone in the district envied him. They said of him, Elias is a fortunate man. He has plenty of everything. This world must be a pleasant place for him. People of position heard of Elias and sought his acquaintance. Visitors came to him from afar, and he welcomed every one and gave them food and drink. Whoever might come, there was always kumis, tea, sherbet, and mutton to set before them. Whenever visitors arrived, a sheep would be killed, or sometimes two, and if many guests came, he would even slaughter a mare for them. Elias had 3 children. A mare. People ate horse meat. Elias had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, and he married them all off. While he was poor, his sons worked with him and looked after the flocks and herds themselves. But when he grew rich, they got spoiled, and one of them took to drink. The elder was killed in a brawl, and the younger, who had married a self-willed woman, ceased to obey his father, and they could not live together any more. So they parted, and Elias gave his son a house, and some of the cattle, and this diminished his wealth. Soon after that, a disease broke out among Elias's sheep, and many died. Then followed a bad harvest, and the hay crop failed, and many cattle died that winter. Then the Kyrgyz captured his best herd of horses, and Elias's property dwindled away. It became smaller and smaller, while at the same time his strength grew less, till by the time he was 70 years old, he had begun to sell his furs, carpets, saddles, and tents. At last he had to part with his remaining cattle and found himself face to face with want. Before he knew how it had happened, he had lost everything, and in their old age, he and his wife had to go into service. Elias had nothing left except the clothes on his back, a fur cloak, a cup, his indoor shoes and overshoes, and his wife, Shemagi, who also by this time was old. The son who had parted from him had gone into a far country, and his daughter was dead, so that there was no one to help the old couple. Their neighbor, Mohammed Shah, took pity on them. Mohammed Shah was neither rich nor poor, but lived comfortably and was a good man. He remembered Elias's hospitality and, pitying him, said, "Come and live with me, Elias, you and your old woman. In summer you can work in my melon garden as much as your strength allows, and in winter feed my cattle, and Shamagi shall milk my mares and make kumis. I will feed and clothe you both. When you need anything, tell me, and you shall have it." Elias thanked his neighbor, and he and his wife took service with Muhammad Shah as laborers. At first, the position seemed hard to them, but they got used to it and lived on, working as much as their strength allowed. Muhammad Shah found it was to his advantage to keep such people because, having been masters themselves, they knew how to manage and were not lazy, but did all the work they could. Yet it grieved Muhammad Shah to see people brought so low who had been of such high standing. We are reading out of work by William J. Bennett, the story of Elias by Leo Tolstoy. It happened once that some of Muhammad Shah's relatives came from a great distance to visit him, and a mullah came too. Muhammad Shah told Elias to catch a sheep and kill it. Elias skinned the sheep and boiled it and sent it in to the guests. The guests ate the mutton, had some tea, and then began drinking kumis. As they were sitting with their host on down cushions on a carpet, conversing and sipping kumis from their cups, Elias, having finished his work, passed by the open door. Muhammad Shah, seeing him pass, said to one of the guests, "Did you notice that old man who passed just now?" "Yes," said the visitor. What is there remarkable about him?" "Only this, that he was once the richest man among us," replied the host. "His name is Elias. You may have heard of him." "Of course I have heard of him," the guest answered. "I never saw him before, but his fame has spread far and wide." "Yes, and now he has nothing left," said Mohammed Shah, "and he lives with me as my laborer, and his old woman is here too. She milks the mares." The guest was astonished. He clicked with his tongue, shook his head, and said, "Fortune turns like a wheel. One man it lifts, another it sets down. Does not the old man grieve over all he has lost?" "Who can tell? He lives quietly and peacefully and works well." "May I speak to him?" asked the guest. "I should like to ask him about his life." "Why not?" replied the master, and he called from the kibitka in which they were sitting, "Babai," which in the Bashkir tongue means grandfather. "Come in and have a cup of kumis with us, and call your wife here also." Elias entered with his wife, and after exchanging greetings with his master and the guests, he repeated a prayer and seated himself near the door. His wife passed in behind the curtain and sat down with her mistress. A cup of kumis was handed to Elias. He wished the guests and his master good health, bowed, drank a little, and put down the cup. Well, Daddy, said the guest who had wished to speak to him, I suppose you feel rather sad at the sight of us. It must remind you of your former prosperity and of your present sorrows. Elias smiled and said, If I were to tell you what is happiness and what is misfortune, you would not believe me. You had better ask my wife. She is a woman, and what is in her heart is on her tongue. She will tell you the whole truth. The guest turned toward the curtain. Well, Granny, he cried, tell me how your former happiness compares with your present misfortune. And Shemagi answered from behind the curtain, This is what I think about it. My old man and I lived for 50 years seeking happiness and not finding it. And it is only now, these last 2 years, since we had nothing left and have lived as laborers, that we have found real happiness, and we wish for nothing better than our present lot. The guests were astonished, and so was the master. He even rose and drew the curtain back so as to see the old woman's face. There she stood, with her arms folded, looking at her old husband and smiling, and he smiled back at her. The old woman went on. I speak the truth and do not jest. For half a century we sought for happiness, and as long as we were rich, we never found it. Now that we have nothing left and have taken service as laborers, such happiness that we want nothing better. But in what does your happiness consist? Asked the guest. Why, in this, she replied. When we were rich, my husband and I had so many cares that we had no time to talk to one another, or to think of our souls, or to pray to God. Now, we had visitors and had to consider what food to set before them and what presents to give them, lest they should speak ill of us. When they left, we had to look after our laborers who were always trying to shirk work and get the best food, while we wanted to get all we could out of them. So we sinned. Then we were in fear, lest a wolf should kill a foal or a calf, or thieves steal our horses. We lay awake at night, worrying lest the ewes should overlie their lambs, and we got up again and again to see that all was well. One thing attended to, another care would spring up. How, for instance, to get enough fodder for the winter. And besides that, my old man and I used to disagree. He would say we must do so, and I would differ from him, and then we disputed, sinning again. So we passed from one trouble to another, from one sin to another, and found no happiness. Well, and now? Now, when my husband and I wake in the morning, we always have a loving word for one another, and we live peacefully, having nothing to quarrel about. We have no care but how best to serve our master. We work as much as our strength allows, and do it with a will that our master may not lose but profit by us. When we come in, dinner or supper is ready, and there is kumis to drink. We have fuel to burn when it is cold, and we have our fur cloak, and we have time to talk, time to think of our souls, and time to pray. For 50 years we sought happiness, but only now at last we have found it. Only now at last have we found it. The guests laughed, but Elias said, Do not laugh, friends. It is not a matter for jesting. It is the truth of life. We also were foolish at first and wept at the loss of our wealth, but now God has shown us the truth, and we tell it not for our own consolation, but for your good. And the mullah said, That is a wise speech. Elias has spoken the exact truth. The same is said in Holy Writ. And the guests ceased to laugh and became thoughtful. Interesting. Nice story. A Psalm of Life. Esri, Esri, come here. Esri. Oh, boy. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A Psalm of Life. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said of this poem, I kept it some time in manuscript, unwilling to show it to anyone, it being a voice from my inmost heart, at a time when I was rallying from depression. The verse reminds us that work is often the best cure for unhappiness. Another great American writer and contemporary of Longfellow, Nathaniel Hawthorne, gives the same prescription in The Scarlet Letter. Preach, write, act, do anything save to lie down and die. I think we read this once before, but this is out of the Book of Virtues by William J. Bennett, and he has this, he just said this commentary, and we're reading A Psalm of Life by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Tell me not, in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumber, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us farther than today. Art is long, and time, capital T, is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant, let the dead bury its dead. Act, act in the living present, capital P, heart within and God overhead. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing. Learn to labor and to wait. So be patient and work. Oh boy. Do you have enough time to read that part? No. Sorry. Oh dear, this is too long. Okay, success. This looks like a Russian over here. Oh. Success by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. These lines are from Longfellow's A Ladder of St. Augustine. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. We have not wings, we cannot soar, but we have feet to scale and climb by slow degrees, by more and more, the cloudy summits of our time. The mighty pyramids of stone that wedge-like cleave the desert airs, when nearer seen and better known, are but gigantic flights of stairs. The distant mountains that uprear their solid bastions to the skies are crossed by pathways that appear as we to higher levels rise. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. Okay. Francis Bacon, 1597. A little bit too long for us to read. The Noble Nature by Ben Jonson. Johnson, Jonson. If we devote care to details, our work will shine in small bits and pieces, and our characters will improve degree by degree. That's what William J. Bennett says. It is not growing like a tree. The Noble Nature, Ben Jonson. It is not growing like a tree. In bulk doth make man better be, or standing long an oak 300 year, to fall a log at last dry, bald, and sere. A lily of a day is fairer far in May, although it fall and die that night. It was the plant and flower of light, capital L. In small proportions we just beauties see, and in short measures life may perfect be. You have to expect life to be perfect a little at a time. In fact, you have to find the small moments to cherish. Now, did we? Oh, yeah, we read that just now. This one is too long. This one is Great Men by Ralph Waldo Emerson. There's no commentary. Not only man can make a people great and strong. Men who, for truth and honor's sake, stand fast and suffer long. Brave men who work while others sleep, who dare while others fly. They build a nation's pillars deep and lift them to the sky. While others fly, fly means fleeing, like running away. So, and who dare while others fly. Not gold, but only man can make a people great and strong. So a person can't become strong just because they have money. Men who, for truth and honor's sake, stand fast and suffer long. So, men who stand fast and suffer a long time for truth and honor's sake. Like, for example, when I was dismissed from Berkeley because I wouldn't cheat on my physics exams. And I was the one who got dismissed. Brave men who work while others sleep, who dare while others fly. They build a nation's pillars deep and lift them to the sky. The pillars have a great foundation deep into the ground, and they lift up into the sky. So if you work hard, you can do more while others are sleeping. Okay, these are just going to have to mark up everything that I've read because everything was short little bits at a time. I thought that was a great story. The one about how the husband and wife couldn't be happy when they were 50 years wealthy. And then when they became poor, they had time for their souls and to think and to cherish each other and to talk. So then they didn't have to feel cares anymore. I thought that was really wonderful. It means bigger money, bigger problems. If you don't have your, excuse me, if you don't have your money situation solved with small money, you won't be able to solve it with more money at all because it will just become a bigger debt instead of instead of instead of solvency. So, okay, I think I'll leave you there. I will talk to you again tomorrow. I hope you've been able to see some action actionable areas to contain virtue in your life, and we seek wisdom being the right things to do. Knowing the right things to do is wisdom, and I provide you what other people say that is in our morsels of a thought, so that we will know the right things to do and thus gain a chance to bring out virtue in all of us. Okay, old Kinderhook.